Hello there, welcome back to Grass Me Up, the premier lawn and sports turf podcast. I'm Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited, and today I'm going to be talking about fairy rings because it looks like they've suddenly appeared on the horizon, as it were. It's not the case, they've been around all year, but they've suddenly shown themselves in a lot of lawns and especially sports turf with often disastrous consequences. This happened at my local sports field where suddenly it looks like the fairy rings have started to kill the grass off. Now, that's not the case. What's actually happened is that we've had a severe drought through the summer of 2025, haven't we? And the grass has all looked like it's dead. One's gone senescent, it's produced thatch, and so it's all looked fairly yellow and lightly coloured. Now, what's happened in the last couple of weeks is the rain has returned, the grass has started to grow, but the area around the fairy rings, where the fungus was in the fairy ring, has died off. And that was always dead. It's just you never saw that it was dead back in the summer. So fairy rings, if you didn't know, they're a fungus that grows in the thatch and in the organic matter feeding off it in the soil, and it grows in what's the opposite of concentric? Extending circle out. So it eventually grows itself out of a lawn or out of a sports turf. However, as it does that, it exudes hydrophobic chemicals into the grass to complete its life cycle, and it also leaves behind waxy residues from the grass leaf surface. So when there's a drought, this means that the grass that's around these exudates actually suffers to the point where it can die. So it's not directly killing it, it's not a pathogen, but it produces soil conditions that are completely unsuitable for plant growth, and so the grass dies off in the area where it's been. So a lot of people say, oh, don't harm fairy rings, they are a beneficial organism. Well, sometimes when everything's well watered, they can be. However, they do modify the surface, the soil strength and the playability and the speed at which a ball can travel across that grass, especially in the area where the fungus is currently growing. The grass grows a lot faster, and so it can be twice, 3 times as the height of the grass around it, and that's not good for ball games, clearly. So especially, golf and tennis and football, games like that. And as it's autumn at the moment, we're also seeing lots of fruiting bodies, what people might call mushrooms or toadstools or puffballs. These appear at the soil surface and these can themselves get in the way of the games and be unsightly. Some people like them, but you can actually slip on them as well. A really, really big fairy ring toadstool is a very slippy thing to stand on if you're not wearing studs, or even if you are wearing studs. That's because it contains chitin, which is a slippy bioplastic type material, biopolymer. So a lot of the time you're looking to control them or at least treat the symptoms of that hydrophobicity, the water repelling nature of them. So wetting agents are routinely used. So we at Utrema, we produce clay drainer. That's a wetting agent that can be used. There's loads of wetting agents in sports turf. In lawn care, not so much. That's why we introduce clay drainer, and that can be used to overcome hydrophobicity in the soil. Also, things like our yucca extract are a really good organic wetting agent for that. Obviously, maintaining irrigation so that you don't have that drought in the first place. That's always important. Reducing organic matter content by managing your thatch, as we talked about in the previous episode. Controlling thatch will make sure that you don't get a build-up of fairy rings. So that's another reason to control thatch. And then you can apply fungicides to suppress, if not eradicate, the rings. That's one option. However, they're not routinely used, and you will find that they can be ineffective against especially soil-dwelling fungus. Fungicides tend to work best against foliar fungal pathogens. One thing that we do potentially recommend in certain situations is use of a soil sterilant. A lot of people sell hydrogen peroxide. However, that's poisonous to the plant roots, so we don't recommend it here at Utrema. At Utrema, we have an organic soil sterilant called lime sulfur, and that is safe to use on plants. It kills all the fungi and a lot of the insects in the soil though. And so we only recommend its use with caution, spot applications, not full treatment of a field. But certainly for spot applications of a fairy ring, it's potentially a good option for that. So I'm going to go and treat some fairy rings with lime sulfur tomorrow after I've mowed it, and see if we can perhaps control some of this area where it's been really bad and it's killed off the sports turf at the local sports field, football pitch. And then I'll reseed the area that's died off, apply a wetting agent to make it sure that it's no longer hydrophobic, and hopefully that will improve it. So yeah, fairy rings. There is a lot to fairy rings, so I've only lightly covered it here. You may find with mulching type mowers, you get more fairy rings because you're adding organic matter into the topsoil, or certainly that top few centimetres, the O horizon. So fairy rings could be more of an issue there. What else could control fairy rings? Making sure you could apply a standard mycorrhizal treatment as well. So rather than a fairy ring forming mycorrhizal species, that's another option. You can cut out fairy rings and move them around and things like this. You could big chunks, big cubes of topsoil. You can eventually move them, break them up. That just means you have more fairy rings. You move it in more directions. It's not one organism that you can kill by chopping it in half, unfortunately. And it's an interesting one because we have had a debate in our local sports field about whether we should kill them or not, control them, and say it seems crazy. But using something like a lime sulfur, which is an organically registered soil sterilant, seems like a better option than applying a residual fungicide with low biodegradability that could harm people who are playing on it in a few hours' time. Whereas lime sulfur breaks down after a few hours, no residence time in the soil, no residual action, no long-term toxicity and something like that. So it's not an ideal situation to be harming another organism, but on the scale of things, I think it's probably a good thing compared to applying lots of fungicides. And then applying wetting agents as well is going to help as well. So fingers crossed we can sort that. So it's a big problem now in the autumn because the grass is growing again. So you're seeing the fairy rings and you're seeing the effect of that drought. So you're not, the problem is that the droughts and the fairy rings were causing the death of the grass in those big rings in the summer, but you never saw that until now. And then obviously if you're a professional and you're working for somebody, they're going to be screaming at you that suddenly this has happened and we need to get on top of it, when really it's been happening for a long time. Okay, that's been Grass Me Up for today. If you've got any more information, I'm sure you have, about fairy rings, because it's a big topic and a lot of people have got different ways of controlling it, then let me know. I'm more than happy to do a follow-up episode or certainly add some information at the end of another topic. As always, the biggest favour you could do me, other than visit the Utrema website, is to give us an Apple podcast review, because that will shoot us up the charts. If you're listening on Spotify or YouTube or Amazon, just sit back, relax, because leaving a review on those sites has no effect at all, apparently. All right, until next time, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.